we can open it up for some questions. We have a few that have been sent in. I might first, though, start out by asking each of you a question that I would just like to hear your response to, because I think it would be interesting to investors. What issues about your company do you think the market least understands and that you need to make clear to stimulate investor to add investor interest? I don't know. We can start out. Peter, maybe Peter, are you there? Would you care to answer that? We go down the line and just ask everybody to think about.
Yeah, no, actually, it's a good question, and this is what I'm trying to do with our program this year. In fact, the perception that Klondike was first. There's nothing, because the previous explorers had not found anything, and so we had to spend 5 years doing basic documentation, geoscience, to prove that there was indeed gold in the ground. And now I'm trying to transition that to turning the gold in the ground. Yes, it's there, but turning it into money in the rocks, right? So that there's an economic rationale, and that's what's going to drive us going forward. And I think it also re-rates us. So I'm some of the presenters here today, they're talking about these resources come through to a couple 100,000 ounces is meaningful to a company. Yeah, it'd be very meaningful here because we're on all that infrastructure. So I think that's the answer to your question.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you had a spectacular hole last year, I believe it was, but it hasn't been consistent, and so I think your understanding of the structural controls has improved since then. But was it last year where you had that blockbuster hole? What was it again? Something like over 1,000.
1,009 grams gold with 1,036 grams silver over a meter.
Right.
And that's at 75 meters vertical depth. It's one of the deepest holes we've drilled on the project, the hole 75 meters vertical.
Right.
We're in an orogenic vein system that should go kilometers deep. So we have immense opportunity for exploration.
All right. Obviously, market's going to look for continuity and some consistency along the way. But this year, hopefully, we're going to see some good news along those lines. Giannis, what about what do you need to make more clear? What do you think the market is lacking in understanding of your project down there in Guyana?
Thanks, Jay, for the question. Great question. Look, we try to, both Eric, myself, and the rest of management, try to explain to people what is about Guyana and Eagle Mountain. But one of the striking things I want to remind people, and I'm very frustrated because we do not have yet a 43-101 feasibility study to talk about economic numbers. But
yes,
you are with us or following our company for quite some time. And when we had the pilot plan and we were operating only gravity, one thing and the biggest gains we had was operating costs. And mining on surface saprolite, the oxidized material, which you do not need to blast it, scoop it and pass it from your processing plant, gave us tremendous amount of information. How do you mine in the wet season, in the mine season, at what cost? So I do feel Eagle Mountain is a stellar project, and as we prove more ounces, is going to be a shock. We come to the market with a potential operating cost on per ounce basis. And I would like people to do their own homeworks on that, and obviously anxiously looking into delivering the feasibility study in the next 12 months, and therefore be able to talk about economic numbers here, because we are talking about very cheaply produced gold on surface.
Yeah, that's sort of you talk about the low-cost saprolites and all of that. So there's a question I'll ask you a little later. Somebody is trying to put some numbers and valuation on your stock right now based on I don't know where he gets these numbers, but we'll talk about that a little later. Cost of operations, the high grade numbers catch the imagination of investors a lot of times, but it's the professional investors that look at the whole picture. So, all right. So, Ben, what do you think? What do you think people need to understand to give your company more recognition in the market?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody that takes a good look can see the potential value. If you could duplicate what had been done in the past, those kind of production numbers, it would be, a major high grade producer that could be replicated. So, we've been very successful raising money to invest in this project, and we've had some very sophisticated investors invest in the project, including Yamana Gold, Southern Arc. Some investors that out in Boston and New York.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the general market, we can't bring everybody down to site and explain how the permitting works and have our lawyers explain it. So the general market, takes a first look and says, it's California, you can't do any mining in California. But the situation is a lot different once you understand the details of it. So having it in the Nevada County doing the permitting, and then also just the fact of we're talking about an underground mine here, and the impacts are actually pretty minor. It's not an open pit heap leach, beside some small town in the Sierras. This is underground mine that a lot of engineering controls have been put into and show that there's very few impacts. So I think that as the thing moves forward through this process, people are going to see there's a lot of support in town and with the local government for a project like this that adds a lot of value. I think 300 jobs, community, and of course would be potentially a very lucrative opportunity for our shareholders as well. So it's a very good fit for this town and for Rise, and that's going to come out, and perhaps maybe quite a few investors won't get the full belief in it until it's actually. But that point is coming up, and it's going to be definitive, and it's within the next year or so.
Yeah, I know that there were, some of the naysayers were really concerned about water issues and some environmental issues. Obviously, those are being addressed in the engineering studies, the things that you're going forward through the permitting process. And there are other underground mines in California that have been permitted, right? So it's not as if it can't be done. So what about some of the environmental issues? Just take a minute or two, maybe. Talk.
Yeah, so the environment, the science behind it is very strong. I mean, we've hired some of the top consulting firms in the country to do those studies, which show no impact. So it's not just Ben Mossman telling you that. It's a number of PhDs, really high qualified consulting companies that that examine these issues as far as water drawdown or water treatment. And for example, the water discharge, that's the treatment. The water treatment treats it down to basically drinking water quality. So it's it's very clean water, and that's going to come out over time. Mm-hmm. And it's all there, but it's just 10,000 pages of documents that you have to read through. But and all that's verified by the county's independent consultants. So it's really. It's not so much even a political situation. It's the CEQA process down here is quite scientific and focused on environmental impacts. And then if you talk to Benchmark, who's our main consultant down here preparing the documents and advisors, I mean they'll tell you that almost none of the projects that they do, and they focus all on mining projects, these quarries that are right beside towns in California. Almost all of them eventually get permitted. So things do get done in California, and it wouldn't be, I guess the fifth biggest if things didn't get done. So,
all right. Well, of course, the market, seeing will be believing for many people, I suppose. But in any event, you're moving fairly quickly, as if I understand you, towards getting some of those hurdles cleared. So, all right. Okay, Ryan. I mean, to me, the idea that I have about Calibre, and the reason the market maybe hasn't, the market has certainly responded more recently with those earnings that you just reported. But Ryan, are you there?
Yep, I'm here, Jay.
Okay, so the same question. Do you think the market needs to know more that would make them more comfortable and more excited about your story?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'd have to say a couple things. One, probably first and foremost, is jurisdiction. we as a group look for opportunities to find gold and appropriately process gold and work closely with the communities in which we operate. And Russell Ball was the CFO of Newmont. He worked in many countries around the world. Darren Hall, our Chief Operating Officer, he's worked in United States, he's worked in Canada, Australia, Indonesia, Peru, and these guys said this is one of the better jurisdictions they've ever worked in. It's got great infrastructure. One of the most important things is the 10, 20, 30, maybe 40, 50 kilometers around your the social license to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And our previous operators, B2 Gold, did a tremendous job of laying that foundation. We're carrying the torch for them. We're working hard with our communities, making sure everybody is healthy and safe, aware. We communicate regularly with our employees, do a lot of environmental and sustainable works. That's very important. And governments will recognize that. Governments will listen to their communities and recognize what's happening there. And I think that's evident by the operating license that B2 Gold had for the last 10 years as stewards of these operations. I think, Jay, another aspect about Calibre that is starting to get educated and informed is this hub and spoke approach. For example, our Libertad operation, on the mining concession itself, there's no reserves. And there's about 500, almost 600,000 ounces of resources. But now we're utilizing the processing facility in the sense that we're pulling ores from different sources around the country, utilizing the infrastructure, utilizing the favorable cost structures that we've been able to advance and process more ores at lower costs. And so it's a real focus with production with a margin, but working with our communities and being able to demonstrate that we can do this effectively. And I think as we demonstrate quarter over quarter, executing on our commitments, I think the market's going to see the opportunity there. In addition, as we continue to explore and drill, some people will come back and say, B2 Gold sold these assets. They've gone on to better things. But I think this is a real win-win situation with B2 in the sense that they took some cash, but they're our largest shareholder. They recognize that we're 120% focused on delivering value, working closely with our communities, and seeing all the exploration potential and drilling and advancing all of those and investing in the assets. The assets initially were less than 4% of B2 Gold's now.
Yeah.
When we acquired these, they were less than 8% of their production. So now for us, it's very meaningful, and I think B2 Gold recognized that, and I think they're doing very well in their shares since our deal. So we'll continue to be focused and continue to educate this opportunity.
It certainly seems to me that you talk about Nicaragua, it's the political issue in the minds of many people, and I would think that if people can become comfortable with that, of course, your earnings speak for themselves too. So before you did the merger with B2. I couldn't get over because I felt that you're just so undervalued that the market wasn't paying attention to you because of your jurisdiction. But anyway, it sounds good and really pleased with the earnings. All right. So, okay, we need to talk to Ewan. Ewan, what about your story? To me, your market share, your market price seems to me to be more or less, I don't think people are giving you credit for all that upside exploration potential that you just talked about. But what do you think the market needs to know to get your share price up to something closer to what you think it should be? And I don't suppose that's an unbiased question. Obviously, everybody thinks their shares should be much more than they are. But what do you think needs to be told to the market that would improve the viewpoint that people take of Premier?
For me, I think that the hardest part that the market has to understand is how do you value the sum of where most companies are single asset companies. So it's pretty simple to say, well, a peer company trades like that. We've really modeled ourselves off of, I guess our model company was Agnico, how they grew from being a small company to a large company. They did it through developing a number of assets over years. They had their challenges doing it, but ultimately they came out very strongly on the back end. So I think it's really been a struggle of how do you value Hard Rock being an 11 million ounce deposit sitting on the highway that is now I guess, a bit of a cloud over the company with the lawsuit. Sad it has held us back compared to our peers this year. But, you know, to put a bit of humor in this is usually when there's a lawsuit, you know, a mining project isn't a mine until there's a lawsuit. So the fact that there's a lawsuit is you know that it's a good project when the partners start to challenge each other in court over it.
Yeah.
So we're pretty happy how that goes. And I think one of the other challenges is how do people value South Arturo? I look at the drill results we put out, and there's not many companies in the world that are putting out results like that, but we don't have a technical study. So what we'd really like to change for investors in 2020 is to bring the project to the point where our partner will provide us with the opportunity to complete a technical study on the project. Even if it's not exactly the plan that will be carried out, at least be able to deliver one so that we can demonstrate that it, unlike phase 2, it's not just a 2-year mine. We just started up a new underground, and there's a ton of upside there. But due to 43-101 requirements, we have to watch how we guide the project. But my opinion is the project will deliver much more than the market gives credit for. So I think unlocking those two stories will really be the catalyst for us this year.
All right. Well, maybe what I'll do is take a few of the questions that have come in now, maybe starting with you, Ewan. There is a question, one person calls in, Becky Chan, asks, what do you need to do, what do they need to do with Centura Gold to move forward with the project? I mean, maybe just a quick comment without getting yourself into trouble in terms of Centura. I mean, what were their obligations under the contract, I guess, is what I haven't taken the time to understand. But obviously, you can move forward, but you can't move forward without your joint venture partner agreeing to go with it. So,
yeah, without giving a lot of details, because obviously there is proceedings against the project. Our detail is our agreement between the partners is very specific on how things work, especially if we agree on a go path. And some people choose not to abide by the word of the agreement, even though it's been negotiated by both parties. So for us, we work with Barrick, we work with Kinross on a project, we work with Newmont, we work with Gold Corp. We've got a number of partners to work with, and we pride ourselves as being a good partner. And the last place we ever want to end up in any project is in a courtroom. So Premier is pretty open to, we would like this to be resolved out of court, because I'd rather be putting dollars into the ground instead of into lawyers' pockets.
for sure.
And we'll always maintain we do not want to be in a court case. We'd rather come to a resolution and work this out amicably, as partners should do.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that our partner begins to feel the same, and that we can come to an amicable decision before we even hit the court. And if not, then we'll have to wait until where the court case is heard. And we believe that what we have represented is 100% right, and there won't be much of an issue once it hits the court.
I have more. Tracy, I'm on the line now. My wife is here bugging me. She always is over my shoulder telling me I need to do something. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong, and I'll find out about it at the dinner table tonight. Anyway, so one more question for you has to do with someone, and I don't know, we have to be careful of the time because we only have a few minutes left. So the Hasaga project, somebody says somebody said they bought your company for the Hasaga project. Could you comment on it briefly? He wants to know about exploration costs, etc.
It's a project. We actually sometimes are drilling from people's backyards in Red Lake. So it's a very well situated project in the Red Lake camp. It is, in my opinion, one of the most unrecognized. We hear about Pure Gold, Rubicon, now Evolution, because they're the flagship projects there. But within Premier, it's actually our number 6 project in our portfolio, 5 or 6 in our portfolio. So it's not something that we talk all the time about, but we are just expanding a known mine that did produce down to about 600 meters, produced 640,000 ounces of gold, and was obviously wide open at depth. And we're just expanding that operation. And also proved up an underground. So the drill program this year is pretty substantial. We shut down because of the COVID-19 crisis, but we're expected to start up next week again, and we're hoping to generate some really strong results for the balance of the year coming out of that project. So we're very optimistic. And with Evolution, we're discussing a path forward with our joint venture at the Red.
All right, very good. Well, lots of things to keep our eyes on with regard to Premier. So thanks very much for that. Peter, I have a question here. It says, somebody writes in and says, I like the all-in burn rate per meter. How many meters will be drilled this year? What is the warrant overhang, and when do you expect to raise money again?
Last question first. Raise money. I would like, well, yes, but I would like more. So anytime soon is great. But really after the first and perhaps the second phases of drilling and the results at that point. In terms of the warrant overhang, that's a question I get often. And point out that the warrants are held 90% by officers, directors, employees, and listed insiders. And so as a CEO and manager of the Treasury, it's a great resource for me in terms of getting over hard times because we have the support of our shareholders, and particularly ones with warrants who are predisposed to help. And then the other question was, what was that?
The other question was, well, how much are you going to drill? Did you answer that?
Oh,
what is your program for this year?
Again, because of COVID, we started with we're at like 700 meters planned for 15 holes. Get them done and prove to the world that we can operate, particularly in the Yukon, under COVID, get those results and go forward from there. So as I said, I don't have a set budget. We're planning on, well, the $500,000 allows us to do considerably more drilling than we have planned right now. And we'll see how it goes, basically.
All right. Okay, Giannis, couple of questions here. One person is trying to suggest that in looking at if you come up with 2 million ounces, and if they're valued at $50 in the ground, it gives you a share price of 20 cents or something like that. But I mean, that's a lot compared to where you are now, maybe. I don't know. I think in US dollars. So, but to me, I think the point you were making earlier, the saprolites, the cost of production, and your grades have gone up substantially since you first started looking at the, at the early saprolite project, right? So, to me, I don't think in those terms. I mean, the market might come some magic number for a stage of development, but what are your thoughts in terms of what, how do you think about what your project is worth fundamentally?
Right.
I don't want to get into trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
We already did the disclaimer for forward-looking, so they're okay.
This is the tricky part here, and I guess, as you said, we are ultimately biased about our own projects and our own companies. But I see it in a different way. I'm 30 years in this business, and as a business development manager of BHP, I have seen hundreds of projects all over. So the valuation is on a cost. What's the value of your rock on per ton basis, and how easily can you take it out? Guyana is a great jurisdiction. There is tremendous activity at the moment. Our gold starts from zero, so we're talking even over mine life potentially, a strip ratio of, with a disclaimer, please, of getting almost 1-to-1, but in the first few mining almost 100% without waste from surface. The grades are looking better and better, and I would like to answer to this shareholder that's please stay a little bit more patient. As we come with the new resource outline, definition of reserves, and subject to success, if an economic study early next year, all these answers will be at that time. What is common in the industry, not talking only about Goldsource, is that the market values the ounces lower when they are as geological resources. The moment it becomes geological reserves, obviously the valuation goes higher, as high as probably $250 for Agnico Eagle and so on. But when you deal with an underground mine or some other situation where you will have to be very careful and laser beam kind of focus when you mine, of course, this is more valid. Here we're talking a bulk, open pitable target that starts with very low strip ratio. So I would prefer not to answer the question directly on numbers because I cannot do that at this stage. But we feel very confident and comfortable as management. And you know Eric very well. I mean, all these mines we have created, and so. But the whole point here is we are into some kind of hidden gem, I would like to say, and we want to prove to the market with our hard work in the next 12, 18 months that this is a super project and will come with very low cost per ounce. Now, at this kind of regime, and bear in mind, our internal financial models have been done at $1,250 gold, in some great times. Anyway, thank you very much for the question. It was great. Yeah.
No, that's good. I think that's, so, all right, very good. I think we should maybe move on to Ryan at Calibre. Ryan, I have a question here. Someone that says, if relatively straightforward open pit mining in lower cost jurisdiction, what is driving the all-in sustaining cost as high as it is, approaching $1,000?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our surface mining costs are about $250 a ton. Processing costs are about $50 a ton at Limon. Our underground, we have underground operations as well, so it's underground and open pit mix. Underground, we're underground operations are about $60 a ton. To get into all of the details, I'd have to look back at some of the financial details and statements. But we're working pretty hard to lower those costs. We're doing a detailed review of supply chain management that hadn't been done in the past. So I would envision costs should start to come down in the next couple of years. We're going to be coming out with a 10-year forward-looking plan based on current resources. Within that plan, which is going to come out in June, we're going to be disclosing what the production profiles will look like, what the cost profiles will look like. See some more details about the costs in the next month.
Very good. Yeah, and you have, as you showed in your presentation, you got higher grades coming forward the next couple of years too, which should obviously.
Absolutely.
So, all right, fine. I think we're just a few minutes left here yet. So we have left Ben. Ben, we have a few questions in here for you. Let's just see if I can find the ones I should ask first. For Rysco, once you get the permit, when do you think you can actually start production? And how many jobs do you figure the project will provide for the town of Grass Valley?
Yeah, so I mean, we're a bit crippled to advance things other than permitting right now. So there is some work that would be needed to raise the capital to start construction. So, and there are other. So the use permit is the discretionary permit needed, but you still need a number of other permits from different agencies, which are building permits, grading permits, water discharge permits. Those are all non-discretionary, but they do take time and they need technical information. So and then of course we want our current shareholders to own as much of the project as possible. So there's a lot of growth that's required in the company, and this use permit is a catalyst that I think will allow that growth. But that's assuming that best case situation, gold keeps going up and it's fantastic, and we can raise the money to advance the project right away at the use permit. You're looking at three months to get the first grading permits, building permits, where you could start doing the surface construction, 6 months to dewater the mine, and then probably another 6 months to get everything ready, get the underground areas and start mining. So I would say, best case scenario is you could be in production in a year if you had all the capital behind you to be able to do that, which is
Another person wants to know what your costs are, your drilling costs per meter, I suppose.
Yeah, so we own two of our own drills, and they're both here. We have a deep hole rig and that can drill pretty much as far as you'd ever want to drill. So 2,000 meters NQ, and a smaller rig. And I think our cost, we were at 110 US per meter, and that's a drilling cost.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of the drilling, the cost of the geology. It's not Peter's cost all in for capital, but that's the actual drilling cost, which is quite favorable for a deep drilling. We had a very good crew. We were drilling holes that were 33,000, 4,000 feet long.
Yeah.
But having your own drill it's about half the cost of a contractor and probably a third quicker.
Yeah.
And to answer your other question, I missed one piece. There's 312 employees expected as part of the project.
Okay. All right. So would you envision production levels similar to what the prior producers back at the end during World War II, or how do you see this project going?
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. And so there's no resource and there's no reserves and there's no feasibility study. So there's no official number on how much production could be done, and there's no guarantee that any production could be done. But the whole idea is that they were mining 1,000 tons per day. That's what we're going to reopen it at. Everything designed to allow that throughput as far as the machinery and the hoisting. And so that's a good start. And if you can achieve anything near what the grades were in the past, that is quite a lot of gold production. So they were doing 121,000 ounces of gold per year at 1,000 ton per day. And so that's quite a good size operation.
All right. One more yet, and then I think we have to wind it down. This is also for you, Ben. Would Rise consider sharing a portion of any production NSR with the county as a way to influence its development, acceptance, and timeline expediency? If that's a question I should have asked you, actually. But
no, I mean, there is a lot of benefits, and for a lot of people and organizations and governments in the county. So I don't think people, fully appreciate that. But you're talking, over 300 jobs. 300 jobs creates 1,500 jobs. So not tax revenues in the county, but a lot of them would be. And so every employee pays state, federal income tax. The company pays state and federal income tax. And then for the county itself, they would get property tax. So right now we all pay property tax on the assessed value of our properties, which is something like $50,000 a year. If you have 126,000 square feet of industrial buildings and an operating gold mine, I would expect that property tax will probably increase. So they have property taxes, and then they have, of course, sales tax from all the spending everything that we buy basically gets taxed. Anything the employees buy, in town, they get taxed. So we haven't done an economic study to see how much impact, but it's very significant benefits to not only the county government, but also all other state agencies and the community.
And obviously you have obligations to your shareholders too. So you play by the rules. When you set up your project, your tax rates are, what the laws are. So, all right, very good. I think we have to wind it up now because we're a little bit past our time. I want to thank all of you for coming on and sharing your thoughts. And of course, I know that you're all open to hearing from people who are interested in your story. They can contact your offices and learn more, download your PowerPoints online, go to your websites. So thanks to all of you for the presentations, and we'll look forward to keeping up with you all in the future. So thanks again.